Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gathering Place. I am Ben Bookie. I am joined, as always, by Talora, and we're welcoming back Ken Shelton after being off for a few weeks. Of course, he's going to leave us early, so in this episode, but we're glad to see his face. And today we have a special guest, Sue Bowles. We met, I don't even, when I met we met Sue just a couple years ago, so we haven't even gotten to know Sue that long, but Sue's a lot of things. She's a life coach. She's a speaker.
That didn't sound right. That didn't sound right.
I'm going with it.
We're all friends here.
Yeah.
We're all friends here.
So she's a speaker. So she's been nagging me to go on retreats. So I'm not going to say she's a nag, but she's a lot of things. I mean, Taylor opened that door, so I'm just going to go there. But but Sue is one of those people that we've quickly grown to love, and we appreciate her and everything that she does. And Sue has a story, a lot of stories, but a story. And I'm gonna turn it over to Laura just to introduce the book that Sue wrote. Although she has other writings, which we don't have, but Sue, I'm sure,
I'll take care of that later.
I first wanted to say I'm very happy to see Ken's face on here. That is just, it's refreshing, and it's a story of healing. So it's powerful. So it's good to see you, Ken.
Thank you. Be back.
So we met Sue at the Grace Story conferences, and such an honor to know her. We did buy this book, and I'm backwards to me.
No, you're good.
Okay. So it's the space between. I know. I'm like, so it's a powerful story. One of the things I am interested in is just her starting to share her story on eating disorders, which has been another healing journey. So Sue, go ahead and just, I don't really have a specific question. Why don't you just start with sharing your story?
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know Ben and Talora, and just met Ken today. And I've just thoroughly enjoyed working with them and being associated with them. So thanks for the opportunity. My story is that to get to where the eating disorder comes in, I kind of have to work backwards, because eating disorders don't just appear. Eating disorders are rooted in some trauma of some way of some kind of unresolved emotion. And for me, my first issue was when I was 7 years old. And because I'm a childhood rape survivor, I was raped by a classmate after school one day when I was 7 years old. I was held against my will for 45 minutes. And his last words were, "Don't tell anybody." And I didn't. And this is early 70s. Rape was not on the radar. Nobody knew to ask anything. I didn't know to say anything. Nobody did anything wrong except my perpetrator. It took me a long time to, honestly, 2014 before I could say that. And that's a different chapter of the same story. And as you know from this show and knowing Ben and Talora, Ken, the trauma literally rewires your brain. So at 7 years old, I didn't have a chance to be a normal kid. I went right to survival mode. And one of the masks I ended up wearing for survival was that I had no problems. Sue was your go-to gal. Sue had it figured out. Sue was the good one. Didn't cause good grades, stayed off the radar, performed well, all those things. Not knowing inside I was really dying. So throw in middle school, throw in high school, and by the time probably junior, senior year of high school, I just started feeling conspicuous. I didn't have a lot of friends to sit with. Didn't really have any group that I really fit in with. I was in the band, I was in the chorus, but I did drama and I worked. And senior year, I played basketball, but it wasn't like I was an athlete or I was this. I kind of just didn't have a place to fit in. So that led to eating alone a lot. where it really kicked in was in college. By the time I got to college, college is a hotbed of stress. And when you have all this going on behind the scenes, then you get to college. And within the first week, 2 weeks of school, somewhere around there, my dean of students called me into his office. This is not a good start to the school year. And it was because I was wanting to play basketball, but I kind of wasn't attending class. And it happened to be my major, whom I was being taught by my advisor. So that might get you on the radar a little bit. So anyway, so he asked some questions and we talked, and there was something about Ed that made Ed sound safe and seem safe. So after we were done that first conversation, I found myself making another appointment. Now this relationship, he became my confidant. And over the course of the next 4 years, I would meet with him regularly. But by about senior year, I think it was, I just started getting really, really conspicuous. Because up to now, again, I've been wearing this mask that Sue's got it all handled. Sue's got it figured out. But in college, I ate alone. I went to a small college in Northwest Ohio, Defiance College. At that time, one small dining hall. And if you missed the window for the meal, you just missed. So I would be there, I'd be eating alone. And while it's a very natural, normal bodily function to want more food, because food is fuel, my brain, because it wasn't processing things correctly, because I wasn't eating right, and I'm going to add the trauma to it, was telling me, I can't go up for more food because someone's going to know that Sue has a need. And Sue can't be found out because she's got everybody believing she's the go-to gal. So God forbid Sue be human. So I got uncomfortable. I ditched my tray and I got out of Dodge. And I learned to curb my hunger, and I did just snack. And I wouldn't call it anorexia. And it's not anorexia, it's OSFED, other specified feeding and eating disorder. I wouldn't call it that. I would say I had anorexic tendencies or odd eating behavior. But I never called it what it was until 2016. Now, mind you, this is the 80s. I'm in college, so this still tells you how much of a lie I was living within myself. I didn't have my own story straight. And that, it took a lot of forms. You know, when I was in the 90s, early 90s, my parents divorced. And I was not doing well. I started drinking again. And I had friends that had me over, and they could tell something wasn't right. They're like, we made sure we had food available when you were here. Because I was not eating. I was losing weight. I was not doing well. And it wasn't until 2016 that I actually entered recovery. And even that, my counselor, a few different times, had talked about getting the dietitian involved. Oh, no, I got it in control, Amanda. I'm good. So you should go to Gals. She's got it figured out. And then 2016, things started ramping up again. And she was bringing it up every week. I'm like, I'm not getting out of this one. After about 4 or 5 weeks of her continuing to ask about it and wanting to get the dietitian involved, I looked at her and said, is it really that bad? And she said, yes, it is. And I said, all right. So I kind of gave in. And I am so thrilled that I did. As much as I fought Amanda for years on this, I am so thankful that she was relentless, lovingly, but relentless, because I am in recovery now. If you had told me then, I would be where I am now, not just physically, but in terms of everything else God's opening up. I would have laughed you off the face of the earth, because I didn't think I was worthy. I didn't think I mattered. I didn't think I had anything to offer anything. And yes, with the eating disorder, there were comorbidities. There was depression and all kinds of other stuff as well. Add the PTSD on top of it. So I was a hotbed of a mess. So I'm not surprised now that I know what I know. I'm not surprised I had an eating disorder. And I'm grateful for opportunities to share my story, because the more we talk about it, the less stigmatized it becomes.
Wow. It's so good to be in this setting right now. Pardon me for jumping in. It's so good to be in this setting. I didn't realize how much I've missed it over the last week. And it just feels like such a good environment. You tell your story with such ease and authenticity. And I am so grateful that you are willing to share from your heart what you went through, those years, very difficult years. And I'm sure you're touching a lot of people. Sorry, Tamara.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know if you've missed that part of me or not, but I will.
We love you, Ken. We love you. I was just going to ask how long that the eating disorder, like how long did you, I mean, it's kind of I think a lifelong fight, right? Because you could always fall back whenever things happen. But how many years would you say?
I mean, from college to 2016. So you're talking about 30, 40 years. So, yeah. And again, it wasn't, there was a while there where everything settled, where I was doing fine, didn't even think about eating or anything like that. And what kicked it was in 2005, my pastor's wife died from a 5+ year battle with cancer. And in 2008, I was grieving her as if it was yesterday. And my eating disorder behaviors, my red flags started coming up. And for me, one of the big ones is not being able to make a food decision. I'll open up the fridge and I'm like, just shut it. I can't think about this. It's too much stimulus. I can't even make a decision right now. Yeah. So that's where, again, I shut it off and I start to snack instead. That was coming up again. So I got a hold of my pastor, and he got me connected with Amanda. Now, what's interesting is that was 2008. So back in the late 90s, I was a youth leader. I was doing National High School Youth Ministry and was also youth leader at my church. And we had been we did a conference every year down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, called High School LT. So I was down there one year and I was helping lead it, and then Chuck was there helping chaperone the guys. And I was not doing well. Chuck knew. We had this conversation, and he looked at me. We're outside talking outside the houses, and he's like, "Sue, you're dying. You're killing yourself." And he was very strong about that. And thank God I was smart enough not to say this. But my first thought was, yeah, so what? And I later told him that. He said, yeah, it's a good thing you didn't say that. But I was on the worship team, and he looked at me and said, I think you need to take a break. You need to take a 6-month break from worship team, and you need to just get things together with God, and you need to get this figured out. And he actually gave me the okay to return sooner, but I didn't feel like I had that okay from God yet, so I waited a little longer. But so that was late 90s. So it was, again, 2016 before I actually went into recovery.
Wow.
One of the things I appreciate about that is I think people have this perception that disordered eating is just something that happens to teenagers, usually girls, but once in a while you'll hear like this awareness, like, oh, these boys, especially like wrestlers, will have some disordered eating, but that's a teenager problem. Like that seems to be a common misperception, and understanding. And I mean, I guess Flora can speak to this as well, but these things maybe persist into adulthood, or even start sometimes in adulthood, and just because we might think we're immune from those, well, that's not going to happen to me, but it really could.
Yeah, when I'm out speaking, one of the things, the point I like to make, that I'm sure I make, is that eating disorders have nothing to do with food and everything to do with unresolved emotions. And that emotions and eating disorders are enemies. And that makes it harder, because to deal with the eating disorder, you have to deal with the emotions you've been trying to avoid and stuff, and to forget even exist. And you can't go around the healing mountain. You have to go through it, and you need a travel buddy with you.
May I just interject? I think a lot of people, especially people in the church, evangelical church, we tend to want quick answers. We want to resolve problems. It's not intentional, but we go to church every week. That hour or two experience, we come to the place we always worship, bringing our stuff, although we may not talk about it. And we believe that by the time it's over with, we've received something and we can bolt now and we're good for another week. And it really doesn't work that way. But the misconception quite often is, well, you just need to eat more food. Or, well, You just need to go on a diet. I mean, your problem is order. What's your cop out, man? Just go on a diet. You know, I mean, there are lots of quick answer things going on, I think, in the world in general, but my world is the church, so I identify with that. And you didn't do that, so.
And to that point, Ken, when I entered recovery, you know, my homework, when I did the intake was like 140 some odd questions, and you know, I went back to her name's Kristen, my dietitian. I'm still with her now, and went back the next week, and she gives me this food plan. And she's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, I just start crying. Like, that just feels like so much to eat. She's like, "We're not going to get there overnight." She's like, "Right now, your homework is when you're hungry, eat. That's all I want you to do. When you're hungry, eat." I had to get used to listening to my body cues, of my hunger cues, and getting used to listening to my body. And we just had to work on that. And then after that got a little more steady, then it was, okay, we're just going to work on breakfast. So breakfast, just work on eating your meal plan for breakfast. And you know, there's different things out there. What I love and treasure about Kristen is she's like, I'm not going to say you can't eat anything. She's like, you can eat whatever you want. This is not about restriction. This is about balance. She's like, so everything in moderation. That's how I work. And I love that. My meal plan is based off the diabetic exchange system, which is a certain number of proteins, carbs, and fats per meal, and then snacks and everything built in. And what makes those up is up to me. And then, you know, is what we work on and everything. And I remember early on, because I was deathly afraid of gaining weight. I was a pencil. It took me, 3 years to get over 100, 120 pounds or over 100 pounds in high school or whatever. I mean, I was just thin. And some of that was just, you know, you're a teenager. So you're going, you know, 14, you know, to 16 or whatever. So things hadn't kicked in yet. But I was just, as it continued, I was deathly afraid of gaining weight. And I would tell people that. And the sad thing is, people didn't know what they were hearing. I didn't know what I was communicating, but people didn't know what they were hearing either. Now we would know that as a warning sign and, hey, let's ask some questions. Nobody knew. So when I was first in recovery, I remember early on, after we get things stabilized, you know, I'm like, Kristen, I feel like I feel bloated. She's like, and I was like, and that it would irritate me more because, again, I'm used to being pencil thin. And she was like, see, she's like, give it time. She's like, what's happening is that your body is not used to you giving it what it needs. So right now, until your body knows that you are dependable and reliable to give it what it needs when it needs it, it's going to hoard it. That is what's happening. And then over the course of a few weeks, sure enough, very naturally, things started changing. But one of the key things that I always make a point to share, I talked earlier, I said I didn't have the story straight. And what I mean by that is that there were a lot of voices in my head. And I'm not talking, you know, hallucinogenic stuff, but Frederick Buechner calls it the endless chatter of human thought. And my human thought was just off the rails. And one thing Kristen was helping me understand, as I would say different things, she's like, that's not you, that's your eating disorder voice. And I had never heard anything about that, but it helped me start being able to separate things. So I literally remember, and this was a key moment in my recovery, I'm in the kitchenette at work, I'm getting something to eat. Actually, no, I opened the fridge, and sure enough, it was, shut the door, just forget it. I was like, no, I can't do this. And I gave my eating disorder the name Ed. And I literally started realizing that was my eating disorder voice telling me I couldn't make a decision. Mm-hmm. And not loud enough for the world to hear, but I would say, Ed, shut up. And I would literally out loud call it out. Say, Ed, shut up. And then I made myself make a choice. And I still remember the day where not everybody understands this. It sounds weird, but I kind of felt that split in my head of the eating disorder voice started becoming less. And my natural voice started to be able to be heard. And that was so key to my recovery, because up to now, anyone with any kind of addiction or eating disorder, your identity is your disorder. I am anorexic. I am struggling with OSFED. It's your identity. And that means that your identity is wrapped around your eating disorder. And that's why that eating disorder voice is so loud. It has, in essence, owned you with your noise. But Ken, nice seeing you.
So, sorry. Are you done? Or did no? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who knows? First of all, I just want everybody to know that there is a huge spider on my wall. And if I look a little distracted, I'm just trying to protect myself. But I wanted to share with you too. I don't know if I've ever told you, but I suffered from bulimia for 25 years. I myself was also sexually abused. And I think it's not this plus this equals this, but I think a lot of people that do have eating disorders are people that have suffered sexual abuse, because you have to control in here, right? All of the thoughts, all of the feelings. And and I like how you say your identity is your eating disorder, because what did I say? I was bulimic, and it wasn't, I suffered from bulimia, but it was never my identity, but yet it is. That's how we say that or announce that. So what are your thoughts, like, or kind of elaborate more on that, about the identity and how you were able to step away from that?
Yeah. A lot of it was the work with Kristen. And again, when I was able to start quieting the screams of my eating disorder voice, it's like that started to shrink, and then I had a chance to step forward. I was always in there, but I was drowned out. So my rational side, my Sue, you got an issue, get this together kind of thing, was smothered from, you can't tell anybody. What's anybody going to say? You don't want to be judged. Come on, you got an image to uphold. All the stuff that we think is our self-talk is, in a way, but it's because of the eating disorder has brought on so much fear and so much anxiety, and just it's consumed us. And eating disorders are an addiction, just like any other addiction. So there is an addictive personality to this. So some of the same things I'm talking about, most likely someone who's in recovery from drug abuse or alcoholism is understanding and relating in some way with this. And the difference is that every other addiction, you avoid the substance to survive.
Right.
You can't do that with an eating disorder. Yeah. You have to eat or you will die.
Right.
That's one of the powerful things. And having to be able to start trusting yourself, because I didn't trust myself.
Right.
So as I started to say, okay, I need to make a better choice. I'm worthy of making this better choice. I deserve this better choice. When food was no longer the enemy and I started seeing food as fuel, calories are just a unit of measurement of fuel. I won't go, I have some very strong opinions about diet culture. I will try to contain myself here. But yeah, it's not about restriction.
I always say life change. It's, I'm changing because I want to be healthy. I want to have a healthy body. So this is a life-changing moment for me. And it's not about, you're right. And it's not about, also, I think there's a big issue. Like for me, I love baked goods. But if you deny yourself, what happens? Then all of a sudden you're like, you're going to eat all of it, scrape the frosting off the cake. I've done that before. But you know what I mean? Like you go overboard, because once you open that door, then all of a sudden it flips the other way, right? And I think that's the biggest fear, is what I was kind of hearing you say, is like, what happens if I open the door to regular eating? Because you kind of mentioned that to your dietitian, right? Because there was some fear there. So go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about
when when you open, and part of the struggle was, I was trying to do all these things, and early on with the food logs, you're recording how many servings of this and everything else, and a key part of any recovery is having supportive people.
Yeah.
And there were some people in my life, my very close life, who were not as supportive because they didn't understand.
Yeah.
And at the time, that made it harder. It made it more of a fight. Separate of that, the first Thanksgiving, 2016 Thanksgiving, when I was in recovery, was the worst for me. There was something on it, because we did Cornish hens when Mom was alive. There was something went wrong, something got burned or whatever, and it was going to be like 7, 8 o'clock till we're ready to eat or whatever. And we ended up, it just wasn't working. And I'm like, I'm trying to stay on this plan and trying to eat right and all these things. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this, first of all. Second of all, now I got a huge curveball just thrown in my life when I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm only a few months in, and I was not doing, I'm like texting Kristen to the point she called me and just to check in and make sure I was okay. And she's like, I'm glad you reached out, so let's do this. I had a turkey pot pie that night. That was my Thanksgiving dinner. But I ate, and that was the important part, because at that point, my mind was wanting to say, no, don't even eat. Just screw it, forget it, get some chips and a glass of milk and call it a night. So a turkey pot pie was a win. So yeah, having supportive people is really key for anything. And, there are a lot of like I said, it's an addiction. It's just a different type of addiction that requires the opposite of any other addiction.
You made a couple of points that I want to highlight, but just that change is uncomfortable, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, and how, so, in your book, even the title, right, reflects this, like, we're here and we want to be here, but there's a lot of space in there. And we're right? So we're scared of that. That space is terrifying often.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so how do you do that? Like, how do you get, like, when I'm here and I see where I want to be, like, what do we do with that feeling of just discomfort, of fear, and sometimes just like, I don't want to do that. Like, that's too hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the comfort thing is such an overriding thing, because getting back to the comment about identity earlier, so many people say, well, I have anxiety. It's like, you don't, and again, it's a semantics thing. You are anxious. Anxious is a feeling. Anxiety is a state. And anxiety can be an identity. And if we let ourselves stay trapped in that, if I let myself stay trapped in, I'm a survivor. I was raped. I'm a rape survivor. I have an eating disorder. It's not active, but I have an eating disorder. That's so much of holding yourself back. Terminology is huge. And how, in the book, the book's title is This Much I Know, the Space Between. And it's my story. It talks about the healing, my story. And the second half is the healing journey that God took me on. And yeah, that space in between is just, for lack of a better word, hell. And it's human mental hell, because it's all you've known. That's your reality. And to get to the other, even just to get to the mountain, not even to try to get to the other side of the mountain, of the healing mountain, but just to get to the healing mountain, you feel like you're fighting. I'll speak for myself. I felt like I was fighting against myself. And it was like a tug of war and a slugfest all at the same time. And my counselor was critical. I've been with Amanda since 2008. I saw her this morning. Some people may think, you're doing the math, you're still with her now? When are you ever going to be done? Yeah. I don't know. And that doesn't matter, because life happens. Yeah. Because I have healed from the past. That doesn't mean I don't have stuff going on in my present. Mom died in 2020. I was her caregiver for the last 8 years. She lived with me since 1997. I had a few things going on with identity of who am I now that I'm not a caregiver. Then Dad passed away within 5 days' time in December, between December 22nd and 27th of 2022. So just over 2 years later, Dad died. Throw in COVID with that, 2 foot surgeries. I had a little bit of life going on.
Yeah.
I want that support. So having a support team in whatever fashion that takes. It could be a friend, it could be a professional, it could be a pastor, youth leader, life coach, counselor, whoever, support groups. And it might be all of the above and more. Because there is first of all, I learned the hard way that healing is not linear. It's a lot of herky-jerky and it's a lot of up and down. Yeah. And you've got to have people that are going to ride the bucking bronco with you. Yeah. With that, it's critical to be open. And that scares the daylights out of you when you're first starting, because you stay like this because you're afraid of rejection, because you have put yourself out there one time and you got burned, or you don't know who you are anymore. So why would you take that risk? Because if I don't trust myself, why would I trust you? So it's a whole world of dynamic going on. I just did a video for my YouTube page and talked about this in a different light, and had to do with depression and suicidal thoughts, and about how you survive all that. To answer your question in one word, Ben, is courage. And that means daring to believe you matter, even when you don't feel it. My pastor used to say, right feelings follow right behavior. And sometimes you need somebody to hold on to hope for you until you're strong enough to hold on to it yourself. The challenge is that you have to take the first step. No one can make you want to heal. And that courage comes out when you're like, I don't know what's over there. I know what's over here because that's where I live. And I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I sure as heck don't want to stay here. Mm-hmm. When I stepped into Amanda's office, I told her, we are not stopping until it's done. If I'm doing this, we're doing it all the way. I'm not going to stop and go again. And a phrase I use is a meaningful. This was my mantra. A manageable level of tolerable existence is no longer an option. And I want to repeat that for your listeners. A manageable level of tolerable existence is no longer an option. That's where I was, and I didn't want to stay there anymore. The first step to getting through that valley, that journey, it's on you, and it takes courage.
Can you repeat that again? I'm
Sure.
taking notes too.
a manageable level of tolerable existence is no longer an option. That was my stake in the ground. That's my pivot point. I'm not going back there. I don't care what it takes. And ultimately, it's holding on to the thread of Jesus' garment, getting tossed around in the wind, but I'm still holding on to hope, because that is the one thing that has gotten me through. One of the things I didn't share earlier is there's been twice when I've considered ending my life. And the second time was a mom and dad divorced. I was not doing well. I was imploding. And I had the courage to ask a friend one pivotal question. And it was, how do you go on living when all you want to do is die? And that was actually what I just shared in the video I posted on YouTube. And he listened about 90 minutes. And his last words were, it's all I know to tell you, Sue, step by step. And that one step of courage is holding on to hope. There were 2 thoughts keeping me alive, and one of them I could have cast away if I really tried. And that was, my family didn't need to go to my funeral in the middle of the divorce. I was rational enough to keep that. Right. But then the greater thing was there was a nagging optimism that would not let me go. There was something inside saying, it's going to be okay. Yeah. And that was my relationship with Christ. Ultimately, it comes down to that.
Yeah, it's powerful. I think there's something I wanted to go back to was just shifting from the eating disorder was the sexual abuse. Like, at what point you said you didn't tell anyone? So at what point did it become the bondage lift? I don't know if you want to call it bondage.
Yeah.
It's like it holds you hostage. That sexual abuse does once it's stuck in, it's happened to you. It's just like it holds you hostage.
Right. So I'm smiling because a very key player stepped in. I talked about Ed, my dean of students in college. And by the time senior year rolled around, now, I paid my way through college. Each year, I didn't know if I was going to make it back. So I would say goodbye to him each year. And then when I got back in fall, Ed, I made it back. So senior year, Ed took on a new position. He wasn't dean of students anymore. He was VP for development. He's over in the president's office. So I'm like, really not sure I'm key about all these upper level officials knowing I'm talking to my dean of students here, but got up with him about the first week of school or so. And he's like, I'm over here. He's like, but I will still be available to you. And that was great. But instead of meeting once a week, we started meeting like every other week. And he kind of knew he had a student that wasn't ready for the work world. So spring semester, he starts giving me homework assignments. And we start kind of working through some things and get back together next time. And this particular one, I don't remember what the homework was. It was probably some kind of comparison. This is where I see myself. This is what I wish I was, or something like that. And I can't tell you the conversation. I still don't know to this day. Ed passed away last November. But it was something, he asked a question. And I tell it in the book. And in the book, I'd say I was inspecting the weave of his carpets because I could not make eye contact. I'm like looking around anywhere but in its eyes. And all I said was, well, when society tells you not to say anything. And my voice trailed off. Being very astute, and obviously we have a strong relationship, Ed asked the pivotal question. He said, Sue, did somebody hurt you? I said, yeah. He said, your parents? I said, no. Somebody else? Yeah. And what happened? He was the first person I told. I did not know I had a secret that needed to come out. It's almost like a bubbling geyser that at some point in time it gets all, it's going to come out. I did not know. And his first questions afterwards were, are you okay? And just making sure I was okay. And we talked a little more. He asked if I was seeing the counselor in town. He asked if I told him. I said, no. He's like, I think you need to. So I asked him if he would go with me. Talk about that support system is somebody to go with you. So Ed went with me. Now, I walk in there. My counselor doesn't know Ed's coming. So he's like, okay, you think about it. You have a client show up with somebody else. You're like, okay, what is going on here?
Yeah, it's always awkward.
Yeah, and the counselor starts asking me a couple questions. I'm dancing. Oh, everything's good. Whatever kind of thing. And he looks at Ed and says, what do you think? And Ed said, this is just true, Ed. I think Sue should quit shadow boxing and tell you what she told me. I was like, okay.
Nice way to put it, right?
Yeah, that's Ed, But yeah, so how it all came out was that was the first time. It doesn't mean that healing happened right away. Mm-hmm. I didn't start dealing with the sexual assault until 2014. Now, Amanda, my counselor, knew about it 2 sessions in. Her homework for me the first time was to do a life timeline of every important thing in my life. And we started going through it. In the second session, we're going through it. And it's like the second entry on this thing. And she's like, well, I already have questions. She's like, but I've looked ahead. She's like, Sue, this is huge. Have you ever dealt with it ever worked it through? And I said, I wouldn't know what it looks like to say yet to have worked it through. So I guess that's your answer. Yeah. So that was 2008. It wasn't until 2014 because we talked about how we had to be stronger in the present before we could go back to the past. And that is a critical point I want to make for people is that trauma sucks. No doubt about it. But when you walk into a counselor's office, it doesn't mean you're going right for it. There are so many other things going on since then and how it has affected you that sometimes, one, you guys got to build the trust in the relationship. And it's you use the onion, whatever analogy you want, you have to peel it back layer by layer because so much has been piled on top of it. I didn't know what a boundary was. I was letting myself be emotionally manipulated, in essence, emotionally abused. Didn't know how to stand up for myself. And we had to get me solid in my present life before we could even go back there, because I wasn't stable enough to go back there. I was having enough struggle trying to figure out how to get through the day. So we had to triage all that and just get that stable first. So I'm going to make sure I say that, because it can be intimidating. But you matter enough to take the step. But for me, Ed was the first person, and then Amanda, and a movie that brought it all on.
I appreciate what you're saying here, because I have this conversation so often with people that we may not get to everything this month, this year. It may not even be with me. It may be 6 years down the road, and and that's okay, because there's so much, I talk a lot about, like, we need to build capacity, right? It's not about just naming this, or it's building capacity to manage life right now.
Right. And
when we talk about all of these things, that you have the ability to do that. And and sometimes I've had more than one person, and even just recently, just come in like, well, I said what happened, so, like, that's healing, and it's important, but that's not healing, and that's okay. That's a step, and but so I like that you're like, hey, like, I brought that up to Amanda in 2008, and we started talking about it and dealing with this 6 years later, right? And just to maybe, in a sense, just I don't like the word normalize, but to normalize it, like, that's actually okay. It's normal. That's how it works when we do these things. And because sometimes we're in a rush. So sometimes, I mean, I'm good at rushing, but other people, like, when they come into sessions, are like, they just want to, like, let's just hurry up and get this done and taken care of, and like, the process doesn't work that way,
Right.
And there may be moments that feel quick, but it's a long game.
I am getting better at letting myself stay uncomfortable. And to your point, Ben, we're a fix-it society. There's a problem, we want to fix it. If you're a mom, you fix stuff for your kids. If you're a dad, you fix stuff for your kids. If you're a manager at the office, you're fixing problems. You're a customer service manager, you're fixing the customer's problem. And unfortunately, real life doesn't happen that way. A situation, you can fix a situation, but when you have depth of an issue, of a being, and totality of a person, you can't just fix that and make it go away. Trying to fix it and make it go away is what got us in the situation we're in now. Yep. Me trying to tell everybody that I was okay got me where I wasn't okay. And, one of the things I talk about in the book is the power of community. And the walking stick community is very dear to me. In fact, this is from an early retreat. That's my stick from walking stick. We have retreat here in 2 weeks. So see, Ben, registration ends Monday. We're in Virginia.
We tried to get you to sign up, but we're going to be at a conference.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're going to the AACC. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, next April we're in Indiana, so I'll get you the information then. So we're in Indiana in April each spring. Okay. So I'll get you the info. Anyway, but Walking Stick became my tribe. They are my tribe. They are my family. They became the people who walked those first steps with me. The second half of the book, when I talk about the healing journey, I don't want to share everything because I want people to get the book and go on the journey with me. But I talk about there's 3 steps to the healing journey. The first one is what God took me through. You got to own your story. I was in denial about my story because I hated my story. I was trying to avoid my story. And that first retreat, I had to come face to face with my story. And that's the whole thing around that, just there, of how that all happened at the retreat room and the whole deal. The second step is to grieve your story. Every story has loss, and every loss is worthy of being grieved. Don't cast it aside. It matters. In the second year at retreat, I grieved my story. My greatest fear was I would cry and not stop. My greatest fear was realized, and I stopped. I cried, guttural crying, like for like 10 minutes. And someone came over and prayed with me silently. And I later found out he said his prayer was, God, whatever it is, put it on me and bring her peace. So
That's powerful.
own your story. Yeah. Own your story. Grieve your story. And the other key to this third step is dare to believe that you matter. My nugget takeaway the third year at retreat was I am valuable to God. I had everybody and their brother and me at the front of the line telling myself that I was not valuable, that I had nothing to offer. I was too screwed up, too far gone, and a total waste of space. There was no way God could ever use me. I had no reason, and why am I even here? I was that far gone and screwed up. And that nugget that I am valuable to God was another pivot point. Because that is when things started to change. That's when the book started happening. Because I started the book in 2015. I had to take 2016 off because I was dealing with my eating disorder. I didn't have energy for anything else. 2016, oddly enough, get the distractions out of the way, was also the year that God dropped the nugget that you are valuable to me. And then the rest of the book started happening. But those are the three key things. And my company is My Step Ahead. And I alluded to it earlier in this conversation with Billy out in Colorado when I asked him, how do you go and live when all you want to do is die? When he told me a story that he had a friend when his fiance was killed in a wreck on the way to surprise him. He was a Christian musician, Billy Sprague, from the 80s and 90s. And his fiance was killed on the way to surprise him. He found out right before he went on stage. Knee deep in grief, neck deep in grief, struggling. It was just a whole story that's not mine to tell. But just all kinds of stuff, shaved the head, the whole deal, and was trying to figure out, why do I even want to be on this earth? And we had lost contact, and we reconnected right before the ski trip, which is why I went to talk to him. And I told him ahead of time I need to talk to him. And he told a story about how a friend, when he was in the airports, would say, Billy, watch your feet. And he had him watch his feet. And each step, one step closer. I can do this. I took another step. And that's when he told me, that's all I know to tell you, Sue, step by step. He had me watch my feet going down to the ski slopes. And my first thought was, God, it is a long journey. I am not going to make it. That was 1991. It's 2025. And I'm still going strong. With that, there was that is part of where My Step Ahead came from. That's why it is so special to me. And then my pastor, 2015, when I changed churches, was talking about what's it take to help somebody grow. And so you only have to be a step ahead. And my whole point with this is that the whole tagline is you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you. Every life has value. Every story has value. And we tend to think that, I don't have meaningful life experience. You have life experience, therefore it is meaningful. Because while I'm still reaching out to Amanda for support, I can reach back to somebody who's on their healing journey where I've already gone through. And we have a human chain of support. That is the power of My Step Ahead. A number of years ago, My Step Ahead launched the Dare to Believe movement. And it is based on that nugget from the third retreat, that I am valuable to God. Because the hard truth, it's all based on how you answer a question. And I'll share you the question first, and I'll tell you the hard truth. The question is, how do I answer the question? Do I believe that I matter? Yes, it is important for others to believe in you and to vocalize that. Mm-hmm. But until you can answer the question in an affirmative, bedrock, positive way for yourself, that yes, I believe that I matter. The hard truth is permanent life change cannot and will not happen. Because otherwise you're doing it for everybody else and not yourself.
I often tell people too, like how how can you love your neighbor, right? Which is found in Matthew, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you don't know true love. So, and I think it's kind of what you were saying. How can I trust others? Because there was the one comment you had made that about trusting, and you're like, if I don't trust me, how am I going to trust you?
Yeah.
So,
And at the same time, if you have not proven trustworthy, why would I dare trust myself?
Yeah.
Because you've told me I'm not trustworthy, so why would I believe that?
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. There's just so many things that intertwine with it. Healing is not for the faint of heart.
No.
Healing is for everybody.
Yeah.
And when you can drive the stake in the ground that I believe I matter. Okay, so what's that look like? It looks like I show up to my counseling appointment with Amanda. It looks like I keep the food log for Kristen so she can help me out. It means I shut off my phone so I can just enjoy and relax myself. Yeah. It means I show up and have this hard conversation when I really don't want to. It means, like last night for me, one of the things I'm working on is social connection. Because again, part of trauma and everything like that is you're really not trusting. All the human chatter and this chatter of human thought that we talked about is like, oh, I don't fit in. I don't have anything in common with these people. It's too far. All these excuses that chatter. So one of the things, and I struggle, is a current struggle. And man and I have kind of not danced around it. We've kind of touched on it lightly about connection. And then we never get back to it because something else comes up, but it's still interwoven everywhere. And I surprised her this morning. And I said, I got a surprise for you. And she and I have a fantastic relationship after 17 years. I would hope so. And so, and I told her, I said, last night I went to a game night at church with Young at Heart group. She went, that's fantastic. I mean, she cheers me. I love it. It's not, it wasn't a detached counselor. Oh, wow, that's neat. Well, how did you feel about that? It was, that was great. Tell me about that. It's like she's cheering me. And I had to get through that chatter that, this is what believing I matter looked like for me last night, in the midst of eating disorder voice trying to tell me not to go and everything. So I'm putting together a video for YouTube about it because I'm doing this whole deal, and I'm filming, I'm getting ready to leave, and I'm like, I got all the thoughts going through, of all the reasons not to go, and it's all the more reason I got to go. And then I'm like, first stop is Sheets, because right now my anxiety is right there. So I'm going to deal with my eating disorder, and I'm going to eat some things I don't normally eat. I'm going to have some French fries. I'm going to have a pop. But that's what I need to do to comfort me right now. And that's still, I'm having grilled chicken instead of fried chicken. So at least I'm doing something semi-healthy, Yeah,
it's
like,
but
I'm sharing all this on the video because I want people to see what it looks like in real time. Then I'm stuck in traffic. And then I'm like, right now, my voice is telling me this is why I shouldn't go, because I'm stuck. I'm going to be late. I'm going to stick out. And it's all the more reason I need to go, because if I don't, then if I pull off here, I'm going to be telling myself, I should have done it. I'm going to be mad at myself. I know what my self-talk's going to do. And if I tell somebody later, they're going to say, oh, you should have come anyway. So I just need to keep going. So I'm sharing all this. But in every step along the way, I am answering the question, I believe that I matter. So I am going to do this, even when my brain is screaming at me to do the opposite. Even though my eating disorder is telling me bail out and go have some, go treat yourself to ice cream instead when you haven't had ice cream in 8 months, or whatever. That's
you do that. You kind of like where you just don't eat it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. The whole thing about ice cream is just trying to be healthier. Heart disease runs in my family, so high cholesterol and high fat and everything. So I'm trying to make some healthier choices. So instead of my brother and I, the older of my two younger brothers was hiking Grand Canyon last year, and he and his wife were training, and they had just gotten away from eating ice cream, and they both lost, 15, 20 pounds just from not having any cookies and ice cream.
You're like, how much ice cream you been eating, right?
But every night, just a couple scoops every night or whatever. But anyway, so I was like, that's good. That's a good challenge. So I talked to my Scott's my youngest brother, who lives with me, and we decided that, we don't need that. It's really easy for us to snack on that, and we become a little more sedentary. partially because of my surgeries and whatnot. And so we don't do the Oreos, we don't do the cookies and the Chips Ahoy, and we don't do the ice cream. Instead, what we do each night, we do a Greek yogurt smoothie. We'll take some Greek yogurt, frozen strawberries, put a little bit of milk in it, and we're having a big 16-ounce smoothie every night. And man, it is so good. It's become literally a nightly thing. That is our thing.
Beautiful. So we're going to wrap up today's episode.
Yeah.
But Sue's coming back. So, and we will have another episode for you to watch. But before we wrap this up, Sue, I put your website on there. Is that the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, the My Step Ahead website has a lot of resources on it. If they want to connect with me personally, they can do it there. But the other website is SueBowles.com. I have a weekly encouragement text I send out that I love to get into people's hands, because sometimes you're not ready to pick up the phone, but everybody needs some encouragement. And it seems like Wednesdays are a big day. People need some encouragement. So they can go to SueBowles.com and they can sign up for it. It's called Hump Day Help. And it's just a text. They'll show up in your messages on Wednesday mornings, just to try to help you out and encourage you along the way. And if they want to reach out for anything else, they can certainly reach me there. So they can reach me either site, but SueBowles.com has the Hump Day Help to it.
Perfect. And you had referenced your YouTube. So
Yeah. Oh, you got to look at you.
that's it. If people are interested, definitely check that out. And there's short things on there, right? So, because if you're like me, I don't watch long things. Even though I sit here and do this podcast almost every week, I don't watch long things. Some people do. I'm not that person, but so if you want to reach out to Sue or just see or hear anything that she has to say, those resources are available. And then if you are interested in connecting with Tor or with me, the easiest way is our website. Everything is there. It's quiescounseling.com. It's on the screen for you as well. Sue, thank you so much for being with us for this episode. And, so for those of you who are watching this live or when we're first broadcasting it, Sue will be back next week. So we will definitely.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. So, because we have lots of things to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we could probably do 20 episodes, but we'll stick with 2 because but definitely, if you need anything, feel free to reach out. And then we look forward to seeing everybody on the Gathering Place again next week.
Thanks for having me.